The objective of this session will be to understand how we can further accelerate that transition to an inclusive circular economy, to learn about those leverage actions able to attract funds and to improve financial and regulatory mechanisms, to listen to real-world examples, their good practices and challenges, and also to analyze which is the role of sustainable finance in the Mediterranean, and more specifically in the southern region. To confer about these key issues, we have invited 8 speakers. They worked in large high-tech companies in the past and is putting his experience at the service of sustainable social impact. However, before handing the floor over to Patrick, I'd like to quickly mention the supporting circular and green business ventures with financial and non-financial assistance. In fact, 10 billion. And then the second objective and strategy will be to facilitate direct funding to innovators and connect them with, among them, EFPA, FEBEA, and other funding agencies to assess the possibility to set direct funding mechanisms for our beneficiaries, for those who are indeed supported and have been supported by the SwitchMed program. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce Patrick and Dr. Schroeder, and I'd like to hand him the floor. Patrick, if you are here and you can share your screen. Thank you very much. Welcome.
Buenos dias
now we can hear you. Now we can hear
me. Great. Hello, everybody. Buenos dias a todos. Thank you very much for inviting me to join this meeting today. I'm very happy to connect with SwitchMed because in the past I worked, when I was based in Asia, I worked with the sister program, the Switch Asia program. And more recently, we started a new collaboration on another Switch program, which is called Switch to Circular Value Chains, which is coordinated by UNIDO on the topic of circular economy. And today, let me just share my screen. I will present the findings of a research report that we published a few months ago. I think that should work. So, and yeah, the topic is financing inclusive circular economy transitions, which is part of a larger program that we're working on at Chatham House, funded also by MAVA Foundation. So we've been very grateful for that support. And this report, I will provide some of the main highlights, some of the key findings, and it's also available online for download if you interested in reading more details. So what we found through this research and our engagement with financial industries and many interviews that we conducted is that over the last few years, we found that circular economy finance is becoming more sophisticated due to the growing demand for sustainable finance from both investors and company shareholders. What that means is that circular economy finance is not only anymore about waste management or recycling, but there are many other new topics that and funding mechanisms that come in. So despite this development and increase in circular economy finance, we also found that it's still considered to be risky for many investors, and policy instruments continue to be important to incentivize financial investments that target circular economic development. So we also looked at the contribution it could make to the SDG context, and we found that most circular economy investments still take place in the global north, Europe, US, Japan, China. But the funding that's going into developing countries is still lower than it should be, and especially if we want to tackle global waste crisis and contribute to also sustainable economic development in the global south. So we really need to have a significant increase in financing for higher value circular economy activities. one of the key challenges that we found, and which was mentioned repeatedly, is that there's still a lack of data on circular economy and circular economy investments, and so that's really hampers progress. And despite this lack of data, what we attempted in this report to estimate actually the size of circular economy finance. So we looked at government spending and then also looked at the stimulus, and we see a number of strategies which countries are beginning to implement. This is, I have a list here. So on the macro level, we see increasingly the adoption of national circular economy roadmaps and strategies. Then countries start setting material resource efficiency and recycling targets for industrial activities. Another important policy is extended producer responsibility, EPR. Then product policies are becoming relevant, including eco-design, also bans of certain types of single-use products or product lifetime extensions. And one of the policy developments to follow here is the EU's Sustainable Product Initiative. There will be, it's currently a document is being prepared that should become public and towards the end of this year or early next year. And there will be, again, specific details on the eco-design requirements for circularity as well. Then we have also a large section on fiscal policies and taxation. We think these are key also to shift the investments. And finally, also, this is also relevant now for low and middle income countries, certain investment policies to attract foreign direct investment, for instance, into infrastructure, which is key to enable various circular economy activities, and also for circularity in industrial development. So that's also important. Possibly also very much in the context of the post-pandemic, because we've seen a contraction in FDI globally. So Islamic blended finance, and there's a partnership between UNDP and the Indonesian government to create a sovereign green bond, and that's been used for various green investments in Indonesia. And so this example could be looked at also for various circular economy related initiatives.
Sorry, Patrick, you have 2 more minutes, please.
2 more minutes, that's fine. I'll be so we also try to emphasize the need to link the circular economy finance to the just transition. So we're familiar with the just transition from climate and energy, but it's also relevant for circular economy. And actually in the European Commission regulation about the EU's Just Transition Fund, there's a provision there that investments also should enhance circular economy through waste prevention, reduction, resource efficiency, reuse, etc. And in practice, however, we have only so far very few examples that have operationalized those social values and justice concerns in investment decision making. So there's some more work to be done here. And then as a final slide, I wanted to present a brief idea about a global reparation fund that we recently published an article about, and we're now in the process of developing a white paper which has some more nuts and bolts of how this mechanism would work. But it's really, internationally, there's not one large fund for the circular economy. However, and at the moment, it's very fragmented, and I think such a fund would be very beneficial. That could then attract also a range of actors and investments. I won't go into details here, but that's something we're going to do some more work on, and there should be some more information we're happy to share. So that's all from my side. Muchas gracias por su atención, and thanks again for the invitation, and look forward to any of the questions that you have, and also the other discussions and presentations.
Thank you very much, Patrick, for this insightful reflection and for your presentation, and also for having accepted our invitation, of course. Let's stay with the importance of taxonomies, the policy option to the risk investments, but also let's hear from investor and of course those who are working with them, such as Claudia, and those who somehow also represent part of them, such as Daniel. Please, Claudia, the floor is yours, and let us know what are the thoughts that you already analyzed from the regional survey, Sustainable and Green Finance, you recently leaded. Thank you.
Thank you, Alessandro. Can you see all my screen? No?
Yes.
Yes? Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you, and good morning, everyone. Finance is crucial to promote and sustain the transition to a more sustainable business model.
Sorry, Claudia, if I interrupt you. We are seeing your screen, but with the presentation mode, so you might be able to disable. Notice that we don't see your face, but you should try to share again, maybe the other screen of yours, or try to disable the presentation view. One of the two options.
You know, but my
try to share again if you can. Stop sharing and share again the other screen. Thank you very much.
Share and share again. You know what's going on? You saw it 2 days ago with my computer. So this is no, now, and like this, it's better.
It's not working now.
It's working?
No, you have to most likely press share twice to share the screen.
I'm doing it.
Okay. Now it's perfect. Thank you very much.
Yes?
Great.
Okay, that's wonderful. Thank you. So finance is crucial, I would say, to promote and sustain the transition to a more sustainable business model, investments, and environmental and social projects and policies in the Mediterranean region. But to understand what actions are needed the most to push in this specific direction, we need to get the pulse of the current situation. We need to understand what is encouraging and what is holding back the sustainable investment flow, and how to overcome the challenges that are currently present in the area. This is why the SSPRAC is currently undertaking a regional survey on sustainable and green finance to identify the barriers and enabling conditions to sustainable investment in the Mediterranean region. So now I'm going to introduce you a very preliminary overview of the main key points and inputs that we collected from the finance industry at the Mediterranean level so far. So let's do, okay. So when we discuss with the investors, about sustainable finance, we saw that they, of course, have a comprehensive concept about what sustainable finance is. At the very first assessment, they showed us that when it comes to the global ideas of sustainability, the investors from our region identified different areas to which they want to influence the most and possibly have the biggest impact by investing part of their portfolios, thus covering a wide range of positive investment opportunities. To the big majority of the investors we talk with, the key objectives are investing in ending poverty, ensure healthy lives, and inclusive and equitable quality education. This is in general. However, when we, let's say, go deeper and put the focus on the green economy, we saw that the sector where the investors from the region are most likely to invest and are currently investing are resource efficiency and sustainable waste management, renewable energy and energy efficiency, sustainable food agriculture, and of course, climate change, adaptation and mitigations activities. Indeed, this is not a coincidence, considering that these are the sectors among the most particularly stressed and relevant in our common region. And at the same time, these sectors are representing the key areas in which the investors want to invest the most, and in order to achieve a more equitable and sustainable future. Of course, when you talk to investors, the most important and first aspect to be considered while the investment process is the financial return. This is why also sometimes the matching between investors and the impact-driven investees remains a challenge. Currently, the finance industry and investors are somehow not keeping up with providing growth capital for positive impacts. Sustainable business model remain somehow underserved by traditional financial institutions, and the impact investors and the venture philanthropy are still, despite the exponential growth that has been registered during the last 2 years, a small percentage of the investment industry. According to a very recent research published by the Global Impact Investment Network, impact investment serves only the 2% of the MENA region. So we see here that there's still a big way to be covered. Finally, several aspects of institutional approaches to assessment and evaluation are holding back investors from realizing the potential of the purpose-driven enterprises. The big majority of investment models focus on value creation through fast growth and a quick exit strategy, and which by definition exclude companies with green and social purposes. Here you can see a very first glance about the key barriers to invest in sustainable business. It cannot be denied that there's a positive trend in the growth of sustainable financial products in the region that is driven by impact consideration beyond the profit. But we also have to consider that several barriers have to be overcome, and these barriers are the ones that are blocking the adoption of sustainable investment solutions. Indeed, startups and small medium enterprises are the disruptors and the innovators that are so much needed today to develop new solutions to achieve a radical switch in our region to a more sustainable economy and tackle huge challenges like climate change, food security, affordable and clean energy. However, despite the solutions that business cases can provide, on the other side, the financial industry itself is asking for very specific support and adoption of different solutions that ranging from the effective supportive policies to the risking investment mechanism or integration of private and public partnership solutions. To quickly conclude, Alessandro, don't worry. What is clear is that for sustainable finance to become mainstream, a collaborative effort is required. Innovative finance mechanisms and paths needed to be imagined, needed to be tested and designed to bridge the demand and supply of financial capital for sustainable business, while finding ways to measure social and environmental impact information and use it to inform decision making. I'm now very happy to leave the floor to Mr. Daniel Sorsal from FEBEA, who is working with us on this very exciting exercise to unlock a sustainable financial mechanism in the Mediterranean area. Thank you very much.
Hello, Claudia. Thank you very much for inviting me today. I would like to complement the story that you were explaining from a slightly more micro level. No? So you were explaining basically the building blocks of how to unlock finance from a macro level. And I would like to start with the question of basically, why is it so hard to connect green entrepreneurs or sustainable entrepreneurs with finance? And I would say one of the first answers we can find is that they don't fit into any box. If you take it from the perspective of different investors, green entrepreneurs are typically considered as too risky by banks. They are also not profitable enough from the perspective of venture capital investors. They're too big for microfinance and somehow too small for institutional investors. And this is a bit the paradox that we seem to find in trying to unlock finance for them. So at the moment, as the situation is, it doesn't give them many choices. This analysis that I'm telling you about is actually the analysis that we have already in Europe. European investors perceive green entrepreneurs this way. And if we go to the Mediterranean, the situation is pretty similar. But using our experience of what has been happening in Europe, I think there are some pointers that could help us find the right path. If we look at what the EU has been doing in the Mediterranean in the last years, basically a lot of effort has been put into developing, let's say, more projects, developing more entrepreneurship, developing more initiatives. Whereas, strangely enough, in Europe, they are taking the exact opposite course. So they haven't been working so much on developing new projects. They have been working a lot more in developing a kind of social entrepreneurship ecosystem, and actually putting a strong focus on developing a financing ecosystem. And this is basically not seen because it's presented as an agenda for developing social entrepreneurship, but actually for the EU, social entrepreneurship and green entrepreneurship are the same on one thing. So basically green entrepreneurs are also benefiting from this. So in this regard, the EU has developed a relatively comprehensive agenda, which includes, on the one hand, de-risking mechanisms. There is a quite substantial package for guarantees that are provided to banks so that they can lend more money and take more risks with green entrepreneurs. At the same time, there has been a number of grants that have been devoted towards helping emerge new types of financing mechanisms, which is quite interesting as well. And at the same time, there has been quite a lot of capacity building oriented towards the investors. including all kinds of roundtables, dialogue, exchange of experiences, and so on, so that a small move can be followed by a slightly bigger move of growing the number of potential investors that are interested in sustainable finance, and in particular in supporting entrepreneurs. So these initiatives are kind of designed to attract financiers, bankers, and investors towards the social entrepreneurship space. And they have started at somewhat 5 years ago. We start to see the first results now. And to be honest, 5 years ago, most people in Europe had not really heard that much about social enterprises. Whereas now, and part of this is the merit of the EU, they are a little bit the benchmark of what entrepreneurship should be. And I think this is an interesting reflection that we should take to the Mediterranean. It is also important to understand that this approach of sensibilizing the finance people, engaging them, making them aware, helping them exchange with each other, towards somehow educating them so that we help them mobilize resources to an area which they find risky, they don't understand very well, it's heterogeneous, it's complex sometimes, and it's scientific. I think efforts have to be put in basically working with this specific group of people in a particularly diverse region as the Mediterranean, and apply a bit the lessons that we have learned in Europe. Investing money and time into mobilizing finance pays in the end. But of course, we also know that it takes two to tango. So we also need to we also need investors who are willing to basically consider supporting the entrepreneurs. But on the entrepreneur side, we also have to present them with much more solid business models, with more convincing propositions, and particularly one issue that's always forgotten, we have to present them with entrepreneurs who have the management skills. It's not just about having a good idea or even a good business model. It's about being able to pull it off. For this to flourish, it's also important to involve governments. Of course, in the Mediterranean, we don't have the EU acting in the same way. We have some mechanisms, as Alessandro was mentioning before, but it's important to promote actively green entrepreneurship in their policies, and also making sure that these green entrepreneurs have access to markets. I'm not sure whether it's only international markets, but at least national markets. This is quite important. I also think the EU itself could do more, basically not only maintaining or increasing support to programs such as SwitchMed, but also using the range of financial instruments they are developing today, which are typically oriented towards blended finance, in other and more creative ways to make sure they can actually reach also green startups. So if we compare Europe, which is the environment I know well, with the Mediterranean, I would say in the Mediterranean, we are 8 to 10 years late. I wouldn't say behind, but late in this area. But I think this gap can be overcome much quicker than we realize as well. So I think it's high time to invest time and energy in creating the conditions for green entrepreneurs to access better and faster finance in the Mediterranean. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Daniel. Thank you very much, Claudia, for your presentations and intervention. Let's stay with what Daniel said. Green entrepreneurs are not checking all the boxes for traditional finance institution. And let's hear from those who are actually at the forefront of this change of using public and private funds to uphold circular and green entrepreneurship in the Mediterranean region. I'd like to welcome Mr. Aldo Puleo from the ENI CBC Med Programme. Please, Aldo, the floor is yours. Thank you very much. We are not hearing you, Aldo.
Can you hear me now?
Perfectly, thank you.
And can you see my presentation?
Yes, please. You have 10 minutes to
okay,
talk about
thank you.
Thank
you very much. Yes, first of all, I would like to thank you for inviting us to give our contribution to this very interesting workshop. I would like to stress on the point of view that we have as a managing authority of a program that is going towards its end, and we are starting the new generation of this cooperation program, which will be the Interreg NEXTMED program. But allow me to first start with the 1420 to tell you more or less where we are now and what we have done. So also in order to frame the intervention and the involvement of also entrepreneurs in our program. First of all, we have 14 countries that are participating, even though which are listed on the left. So the north and the southern shore of the Mediterranean Sea basin is represented in our program. Algeria is the country that has recently joined the program. Therefore, we do not have Algerian actors involved in the projects of 1420, but Algeria is also actively participating in the drafting of the new program. So maybe in the next programming period, we will also have Algerian organizations within our partnerships. We have, well, actually, we had 209 million euros as EU contribution to the program that we allocated through calls for proposals. So in our case, the mechanism, I would say a bottom-up approach. So we open calls and we have applicants that need to set up their partnerships and draft a project proposal that is then assessed, and if successful, it is also financed. This is the area that we cover. Basically, you see the dark blue and the light green areas. Basically, the dark blue are the eligible area regions of these of the above mentioned countries, while the light green are those that are adjoining. Countries such as Morocco and Libya and Turkey and Syria, for obvious reasons, are not participating in our program in 2014-2020. And what have we done? We have launched 3 calls for proposals, one for standard projects, one for strategic, and one for capitalization projects. And we have founded 80 projects involving 612 organizations. The 80 projects were selected out of 686 proposals that we received within these 3 calls for proposals. We have basically allocated 207.4 million euros, so pretty much all the budget available, including the co-financing. Who are our stakeholders? I mean, who are the entities that participate in our, which are the thematic priorities in which the entities that are participating are working on? We have obviously we had priorities. We have 11 priorities which are represented there. And as you can see, there is an interesting level of proposal in the thematic objective number 1, which is the one related to the economic development, where we have startups, economic clusters, and sustainable tourism, for example. We do have a research and innovation topic, which absorbed 12 projects for technology transfer and 5 for research and innovation. And then we have our specific thematic objective objective devoted to, I would say, civil society and organizations, where also NGOs are working, which is 10 projects on the employability. So it is mainly youth exchanges and 4 projects under social and solidarity economy. Then we have our green thematic objective, which includes wastewater, energy, and coastal zone management. You can read the lead beneficiaries and partners from all the countries that participate in our program. Obviously, Italy is one of the main participants, together with Tunisia in the southern shore, but also Spain and Lebanon and Jordan are quite impressive in terms of number of organizations involved in the proposals. However, there is, I would say, a very much balanced participation. We have 108 million devoted in partner countries and 99.1 million in the EU Mediterranean countries. This means that from a financial point of view, but also in terms of geographical distribution of the funds, there is, I would say, a 50% share between the north and the southern shore. These are the main targets that we have achieved under the ENI, which actually allow me to open then the floor for what we're preparing in the next future for the 2021-2027 proposals. We have a 300 plus among aspiring entrepreneurs and SMEs that have been supported towards green business modeling. We have 1,500,000 hectares of land irrigated with non-conventional water. 12 municipalities supported to enhance waste management plans, 1,720 needs, and women trained in the blue and circular economy. One of the main aspects that we would like to stress today, which is actually the key of success also of any program, any cooperation program, is the focus on the capitalization. In the 2014-2020, we have very much insisted in having a specific call for capitalization projects. In particular, the process means to identify the successful and efficient practices, to reuse and replicate them, and to mainstreaming the best policies in, the best practices in public policies. This process has led us to involve also, and this is, I think, a crucial point, other actors that have achieved interesting results which could have been replicated in the program area that we cover, from participating in other projects financed by other organizations, by other programs. And this requires a level of coordination among the several initiatives that are running in the area, but also it gives the opportunity to maximize the impact of the results that a single project can achieve. We have capitalized 14 results from the previous programming period, the ENI CBC Med 2007-2013. We have capitalized 48 results of promising results of the ongoing projects within the ENI CBC Med 2014-2020. We have capitalized 2 important initiatives launched by the PRIMA initiative, and 17 from the Interreg Med, and 7 from the Union for the Mediterranean. We also have 31 initiatives that have been capitalized, included COSME, Erasmus+, FP7, Horizon 2020, European Maritime and Fishery Funds, Europaid, and other programs such as Italy, Tunisia, or Italy, Malta, etc.
Apologies, Aldo, you have 2 minutes
yes.
to conclude your intervention. Sure. Thank you very much.
These are just a couple of examples of capitalization activities that we have carried out. So the improvement of the Mediterranean biodiversity platform, which has been created within a project financed under the Interreg Med program, that has been proposed to be applied and enhanced in one of our capitalization projects. And then we also have the CCAP 4 SDG project. This is another capitalization project that aims to integrate the results of the Union for Mediterranean platform to promote progressive development in renewable energy. I close my presentations with what we're doing in the next programming phases. First of all, we have 15 countries because Algeria and also Turkey are participating in the drafting of the new program. We have set a task force, which is the body that includes all these representatives of the delegations from these 15 countries to draft the new program. The importance of the synergies, I think, is quite evident also from the capitalization exercise. So we are in constant dialogue with the Union for the Mediterranean, the other Interreg programs such as Interreg Euromed, but also Adrian program, and the WestMed initiatives. What are we planning for the future? Basically, 4 are the main sectors of intervention of the Interreg NEXTMED program. This is something that came out through our national consultations carried out in all the 15 countries. We will focus on some topics which are in line with the previous strategy, such as a smarter Mediterranean with competitiveness of SMEs and job creation and research and innovation activity and actions. A very important focus will be given to the green sector, so the greener, low-carbon Mediterranean with energy efficiency, access to water, climate change, and transition to a circular and resources-efficient economy. We will have a social objective which deals with education, training, and lifelong learning, and also a very new specific objective, which is the healthcare and resilience of health systems, including primary care. Finally, last but not least, an Interreg specific objective called a better cooperation governance, which will include actions to better enhance the cooperation governance among the participating countries. I stop here and I leave you the floor for any question, or please join our community, which is very big. We have over 20,000 followers between the main social networks, and I think it is a very important also platform for entrepreneurs to check the results of the projects, but also to apply to work for our projects, because we publish also the vacancy announcements there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Puleo. Thank you, Aldo. It is impressive to see how from the ENPI instrument, green and circular economy has entered your programming cycle. I'm glad now to welcome Mr. Ottavi Quintana, who is the Director of the Secretariat of the Partnership for Research and Innovation in the Mediterranean Area, PRIMA, I believe one of the most innovative and ambitious joint program in the Euro-Mediterranean at the moment. Octavio, are you here?
And I'll share with you the screen.
Thank you very much. Please stay in 10 minutes time, yes, if you can, because we have a long list of speakers.
So I'll try to be short as possible, and if I go beyond my time, let me know. So can we have it big? Not this. Okay, thank you very much for Alessandro, for your invitation. I really enjoyed also the presentation of Aldo, because it will save me several explanations, and I think that we see the two funders, as funders, we need to coordinate our activities and capitalize our results. So this is the partners, 19 countries, as you see. 11 from Europe, 3 associated to the Horizon 2020, or well, the framework programs of the Commission, and 5 non-associated, but also outside Europe.
Excuse me, Ottavi. Can you please click again on this cambiare entrevista moderatori presentación, because we are looking at your screen, which is now actually doubled with the moderator view. So you should try to disable the moderator view. I promise you that for the next edition of the SwitchMed Connect, we will gather in person. So great, thank you very much.
Okay. Well, as you see here, in the previous one, just maybe that the difference between us and the previous presentation is that here there is a contribution of the Union through the Horizon 2020 program, but also a very substantial contribution by all the countries, being more than half of the contribution. So all in all, it's 500 million for 7 years, meaning calls for 70 million roughly for every year. Now, the goal is we fund research and innovation. And as you see, it's very ambitious because we want innovative solutions for agro-food. We want integrated water management. We pursue climate change resilient. We want projects to be efficient, cost-effective, environmental, and socially sustainable. So with so many ambitions that, of course, we want to encompass everything. This is a goal. It's not that we do this for every project, but this is what we want. We are aligned with the Green Deal of the European Green Deal, with the UN Agenda, SDGs, UFM, their goals as well, the new agenda for the Mediterranean of the EC and the EU, and also the food and nutrition security of the UN and the EU African Union. So you see that we want, we are aligned, and we will always have an eye on what the main policies are around, and including as well the ones from the Commission. We have 4 main areas: water management, farming systems, agro-food, and water, energy, food ecosystems, the Nexus, that for us is the future. So we want, as much as possible, all the projects have a Nexus approach, so that we, when we don't look, we want to go beyond this sectorial approach, and always when we, any intervention, the impact it has and the consequences it has in other sectors. So as much as possible, integrating all the sectors. So far, we, so in 18, 19, and 20, because those have been the calls that we had so far, we are now in the middle of the evaluation of the call 21. We had 129 projects with funding of 164 million, roughly 1,200 beneficiaries, and 37% going to non-EU participating states of the funds. As you remember, there are 8 countries non-EU against 11 EU. And we had 24 innovation actions, which is an instrument of Horizon 2020 that you probably know. It may seem poor, but this is because the section that is funded by the participating states, some participating states have rules that they cannot fund private sector. And this is why all innovation actions deal only with this section that is fully funded by the EU. And those are the impacts that we pursue. I will only deal with the economic and social here. That you see, we want to increase the production and efficiency, access to new markets. That was before explained by the previous speakers. And we want to also have a very look on the incomes of small farmers, because that's the backbone of agriculture in the region are smallholders, with certainly increasing the consumers' empowerment. What we like to say here is that we also pursue environmental and capacity building, but I will not go into that because I think it's a different issue. This is a very important part of the program, the leverage of funds. So, and this was the title of this webinar today, this workshop, the fact that we need to pool resources as many as possible. So we have 87 projects that have been funded by the participating states so far. So I exclude here those funded from the Horizon 2020 with 85 million in grants funded by the participating states. But at the same time, these participating states are doing research funded nationally, and those amount to 170 projects with worth of 120 million grants. So all this is leverage of resources that come from the seed, and there's 200 million from the Commission, and they raised so far that much from the participating states that would not be having leverage without this seed from the Commission. The added value also includes, a smooth cooperation with other organizations. And this is, I think, that the previous presentation was very illustrative. We want to facilitate, of course, capacity building in every project, but we do not fund capacity building projects, but we fund the capacity building inside each project. And we want, and that's a lateral policy objective, aligning the national research and innovation system, not to have a common international research and innovation system, but making them much more interoperable so that they can really work one with another. The SMEs participate more than, in fact, a little bit more than in Horizon 2020. So roughly 20% of all the beneficiaries, which is substantial because, as I said, they are mainly in the Section 1. They represent 60% of the private organizations, and the SMEs from non-European are only a fourth of the total number of the SMEs. So they are participating much less than the European ones.
Please, Octavi, you have 2 more minutes, if you can.
Yes.
Are finishing your presentation. Thank you very much. So
I will not go into the 2 examples, and I go to the conclusions. So, so far, we have funded, as I said, 129, which mobilize, hopefully, all the main stakeholders. In addition to these 170 projects aligned with the objectives of PRIMA have been funded by national agencies, and they provide a lot of, as I said, they support local companies in different countries. The example here, for those who know, the Spanish system would be the CEDETI, who is specialized in this. What we want is that PRIMA can be an innovation platform that connect all the opportunities for all the stakeholders and providing opportunities for startups. And I think that PRIMA so far, I think that has provided and been identified as a good implementer of research and innovation actions in the region, and I think that this is very promising for the near future. And I'll close here. Thank you very much. And I think that just let me finish with a message that I think that we need to foster much closer cooperation between the organizations, the institutions operating in the region. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Octavi. Thank you for having presented what are those important results achieved by PRIMA. I will speedily go to our next speakers, and I'm welcoming Mr. Gonzalo Viedo from MAVA Foundation. MAVA Foundation, I think, is the best fit example of private philanthropy in the Mediterranean region, who really had and is having a role in shaping development policies when it comes to sustainability and environmental protection. Please, Gonzalo, the floor is yours. Octavi, if you can stop sharing your screen, thank you very much.
Thank you, Alessandro, for the introduction and for your nice words in relation to the work of the MAVA Foundation. I'm going to share a few thoughts with you. Let me just open my presentation. Primarily about, or really only about the approach. I want to highlight some of the elements of the approach that the MAVA Foundation takes to its work in support of conservation in the Mediterranean. Because these are elements of the approach that apply quite well and quite specifically to the southern and eastern parts of the Mediterranean, and which are areas where the MAVA Foundation is actively involved. So let me share my screen and okay, I'm gonna show it in presentation mode. I hope you can see it well.
Yes, perfectly. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, for those of you who don't know the MAVA Foundation, just very quickly, it's a family-led philanthropic foundation based in Switzerland, founded by Dr. Luke Hoffman in '94, with a focus on biodiversity conservation. It has 4 programs, 3 regional programs or geography-based programs in West Africa, the Mediterranean Basin, and Switzerland, and a thematic program called Sustainable Economy, plus a cross-cutting area of support, which includes a variety of activities. It's an organization with a focus on conserving biodiversity, but and with certain priorities in terms of ecosystems. But I wanted to essentially highlight here, more than all the other details, that it's an organization with a very strong approach to changing the global economy for global prosperity and a healthy planet, as you can see in this description of the mission, which is precisely the topic that brings us today together, and that connects with the purposes and the work of SwitchMed. You will see here some of the values of the organization that I'm not going to spend time on those, but as I said, I wanted to focus more specifically in what approach we take. Obviously, the main goal of the foundation, as I said before, is to fund actions for conservation of biodiversity in the Mediterranean. But what does this mean in practice? Of course, financial support for biodiversity conservation is vital and is always needed. But MAVA does much more than funding projects of our partners. It's essential to the philosophy of MAVA to accompany partners in their conservation journey, helping them develop skills and strengthen their capacities to deliver. And of course, this is particularly important for us in doing conservation or supporting conservation in southern and eastern parts of the Mediterranean. So what does it mean more than funding? Well, direct funding support is something we do a lot. We currently have active projects in Morocco, in Tunisia, in Lebanon, in Egypt, in Jordan, in Turkey, etc. With partners that implement actions on the ground with financial support from the MAVA Foundation, with a strategic approach that we call outcome action plans. So we are not focusing only on isolated specific projects, but on a programmatic approach that builds capacity and incremental outcomes over time. We do a lot of capacity building in the form of grants, but also in the form of various activities. We do organizational developments. We provide organizational development grants to our partners and also technical support for their organizational strengthening. Currently, I am managing precisely various of these initiatives in North Africa and Eastern Mediterranean, for example. We also provide fundraising support. So we try to, through learning, grants for fundraising strategies, and technical support, so that partners and organizations become more able to access funding in a more sustainable manner. Knowing that funding for organizations dedicated to these topics is not just project funding, it involves various other things, as I will describe in my next slide. We do a lot of network and alliance building. We work on the assumption that, particularly in the Mediterranean, well, there are many actors of different kinds: civil society, governments, private sector, local communities, of course. But the task is such that we need to optimize efforts. And that we try to do through networks and alliance building. We have specific networks that we support, like MedPan, Med4Val, the Alliance for Mediterranean Natural Culture. These are just some examples that I wanted to mention with organizations working in different types of ecosystems and projects. But this is a fundamental issue for us. It's a key strategy for building critical mass in the capacity for conservation in the region. And then we do support to strategic and coordinated approaches with peers, that is with other foundations, particularly philanthropic foundations, but also donors from other sectors, including bilateral and multilateral. We have quite an active process today of talking with a variety of these donors and creating joint initiatives with them and creating tools for better coordination. Like, for example, we recently did a mapping of all grants provided by foundations in the Mediterranean to see who's doing what in which place, and through that facilitate coordination and joint action and optimization of the effort that foundations and other donors make in the Mediterranean.
Please, Gonzalo, you have one more minute to close your presentation. Apologies, but we are running late at this moment.
Thank you. I will go through this quickly. In terms of specific funding approaches, MAVA promotes diversity and innovation. We really believe that conventional project funding, as it has been the most frequent way of providing supports to conservation actors, is important, but is not the only way. It is and is less and less important. We do provide conservation grants directly to implementers. We provide matching funds for partners who are applying to other sources of funding so that their applications are more successful. We create and promote trust funds for long-term, flexible, and strategic funding in key areas. We think this is a fundamental approach precisely for longer-term, flexible, and strategic funding. It's a fundamental tool. We have various joint small grant programs which are particularly oriented to supporting local conservation and civil society empowerment, which is, and this particularly applies precisely to North Africa and Eastern Mediterranean, like with CEPF, the Fonds Mondial pour l'Environnement Français, the GF Small Grants Program, etc. And we promote and support innovative financial mechanisms. For example, we have the Cebu Water Fund, together with various other donors and local actors in Morocco, and well, several other innovative tools that we are working on and supporting with several partners. So this is in some the way we try to diversify, optimize, strengthen, and bring to long-term our financial support to conservation and, as I said, change in the global economy for human prosperity and for a healthy planet.
Thank you very much, Gonzalo. Thank you. It is very important, this last slide, and I'd like now to welcome Mr. Gianluca Gaggiotti from EFPA, which indeed, when it comes to investing for impact, is again one of the best fit organizations we could have invited today. Please, Gianluca, if you can make it in your 8-10 minutes, that would be great. We can extend this meeting by 10 minutes at maximum. Thank you very much.
Alessandro, I'll try to make my best to fit in the 8 minutes. So without further ado, thank you very much for welcoming me and also for inviting me to this interesting event. I really enjoyed the presentation of the other speakers because they also tied very well with what I'm going to present today. So without further ado, I will talk about investing for impact. And my name is Gianluca Gaggiotti, and I'm research manager at EVPA. But what is, so I'd start by briefly introducing EVPA. So first of all, EVPA is a network. So we connect almost 300 members across Europe. We are a community because we embrace the same values and we are committed to foster the investing for impact approach in Europe. We are market builders because we were founded 18 years ago when impact was not a buzzword yet. And we are a knowledge and policy hub because we have conducted practitioners-oriented studies. We facilitate peer learning. We collect data on a biannual basis. We educate and train practitioners, and we also bridge policymakers with our community of practitioners. In few words, our vision is really a world where philanthropy and investment combines to drive societal impact. But what is investing for impact? Investing for impact is an highly engaged and long-term oriented investment approach to supporting social purpose organizations to maximize their social impact. We use the term social purpose organization as an umbrella term to include both non-for-profit entities like NGOs and charities, as well as for-profit entities such as social enterprises. Our community and this investment approach is distinguished by 3 core practices. which were actually partially explained also in the previous presentation from MAVA Foundation. The first one is tailored financing, so finding the right and the most appropriate financial instruments to support the investee. The second is the provision of non-financial support on top of the financial support. So we believe the support shouldn't stop at the provision of financial resources. And then a clear focus on impact measurement and management. But where does our community place in the wider impact ecosystem? So I'm already referred to the fact that we are a rich and vibrant community of actors that are driven by impact, and they provide support to a wide range of social purpose organizations. Where do they place? So at the extremes of the spectrum, we can find philanthropy, which is traditional grant making aimed at supporting organizations with a proven business model. And on the right-hand side, we have traditional investing and sustainable and responsible investing, which is support to traditional businesses that are ESG compliant. In between, we identified what we refer to as investing for impact, which goes from the engaged grant making, which is really the engaged, long-term oriented approach that Gonzalo just explained, to support social purpose organizations that also are in a stage in which they're striving for a sustainable business model, but they need to be strengthened further. And it goes towards also social investment. So it covers repairable forms of finance, such as debt and equity, to again strengthen those social purpose organizations where they're developing a sustainable business model or when they already started producing track records. On the right-hand side, towards the right-hand side, we also recognize the importance of another approach, which we refer to as investing with impact, which is usually targeting traditional businesses with intentional social impact. It's important to scale these organizations, and they usually have little flexibility on the financial return targeted. So to showcase a bit how these mechanisms function, so as I mentioned below, before, this is really our core. And this is a bit how we see, let's say, the mechanisms function. So we have the investor for impact at the top of the chain. That can be a foundation or an impact fund that provide both financial and non-financial support to a social purpose organization. And the social purpose organization, through its activities or services or products, aims to create and generate a positive societal impact on end beneficiaries. And through this mechanism, the investor can gain both a social and, in some cases, also a financial return. In terms of the different capital providers involved, I would say that traditionally we were funded by foundations and impact funds, but this investment approach has been adopted by an increasing number of organizations, such as financial institutions, crowdfunding platforms, and incubators and accelerators. Finally, I'd like to provide you a brief overview of this approach and how it works in practice, showing you some statistics that comes from our biannual data collection on investing for impact in Europe. So as you can observe from this graph, debt is the most deployed forms of finance by investors for impact, followed by equity and grants. But what is probably more important to observe is that almost half of the organizations surveyed reported to combine at least two categories of financial instruments, which really shows their flexibility in the financial support they provide. When it comes to the non-financial support provided, as Gonzalo was saying, there are a wide range of non-financial services that can be provided, from support with impact measurement and management to support with financial sustainability, support with organizational resilience, and strategic and operational support. These are the four macro categories that we identified. And what is interesting to observe in this graph is that organization investees at startup stage are the one that attracts the most resources. And again, on non-financial support, another very important stats, I think, is this one on the right that shows that the majority, a large portion of investors for impact provides non-financial support, not just during their investment, but also before and after they exit the investment. And finally, the last stats that I will show you are the one on impact measurement and management. So we have a sort of motto in our organization. We say whatever gets measured gets managed by our organization. So all the data that is collected also get managed. And these graphs shows the different ways in which the impact data collected can get managed by the investors. For example, to assess investees' progresses on their impact targets, as well as to support them refining their own theory of change. And finally, this is like an overview of the frameworks and tools and indicators that our investors use to refine their impact measurement and management system. And if you're interested in that, we will soon publish a new research, and I'm going to share additional information in the chat. So to conclude, I'd like to provide you with a practical case of how this investment approach works in practice. So I'll focus on an investor for impact, which some of you may know, which is MAVA Foundation. It's a foundation headquartered in London, which is investing in Egypt, Libya, and Lebanon. They invest in organizations that economically empower women, youth, and refugees and improve children's education. And they're committed to match each £30,000 of grant with at least with a non-financial support worth at least £16,000 that can come in forms of networking connections, training, and business planning, and other kind. The investee is Live Vision for Development, which is a social enterprise based in Minya in Egypt. It addresses the challenge of agricultural mechanization in Egypt, which is destroying the livelihoods of smallholder farmers, is driving the exodus to the cities and really leaving vast tracts of land untended. And they do so by taking a holistic approach to development in providing a risk-free environment called the Oasis, where they train women to switch to higher return crops, boosting also their incomes. And they also provide training in essential life skills for women, which helps building their resilience. But let's talk about, in a nutshell, about the support provided. So Al-Fanar, on top of providing a financial support since 2015 of more than £170,000 in forms of grants, they also provided a wide range of non-financial services that helped Live Vision to develop, first of all, a strong relationship with the Ministry of Agriculture, which allowed them to replicate in other locations. They also supported them to launch the Farmer Business School, which is a business school to improve the profitability of women-led businesses and develop the successful micro-enterprises they are developing. In addition, they helped them develop a 3-year business plan to establish the revenue-generating center of excellence farm in Minya, to cover part of the costs of the schools and the training, thus strengthening the
I think we have lost you, Gianluca. Let's wait a few seconds if you might be able to resume your presentation. Okay, well, unfortunately, we have to stop here. But I think that this last slide is the perfect frame for our next speakers. Please, Gianluca, let us know if you're coming back, at least to say bye to you. But again, it's the perfect frame for our next speakers, and really to analyze a practical case in terms of investor and investee. Sorry, Gianluca, I don't know, maybe there was a connection problem.
I hope I was finished. So
okay,
yeah.
Perfect. I was just saying thank you very much, also because you gave us the perfect frame for the next panelists, which exactly are an investor and an investee from Lebanon when it comes to circular economy, finance, and impact investing in Lebanon. Viridis Fund is one also of the key organizations SwitchMed is working with. I hope Selim, Mr. Selim Chami is here. Please, Selim, the floor is yours. If you can keep it very speedy, I would be grateful. Thank you very much. And also Mr. Gabi Kassab.
Yes. So hello, everyone. Hello, Alessandro. And thank you for having us on your panel on this great event. So I'll try to be brief because, yes, we will be two to intervene in this session. So very quickly, in a nutshell, I'd like to introduce Fondation Diane. Fondation Diane is a Lebanese NGO that started its mission back in 2002, backed by Mrs. Fadel, Lebanese investor and businesswoman. And she's mainly the main person running the foundation today. So what the interesting part and what I'd like to share is that, first of all, the foundation started its journey back in 2002, as I said, and mainly focusing on Lebanese heritage. Over the year, I think the main mission that the foundation took is mostly to enlighten citizens about responsibilities towards Lebanon's environment and support creative minds for changing and helping in developing a greener environment. Because Lebanon has always been known to be a green place with a beautiful nature. And that is something that has been kind of lost throughout the years. And the way to do this is through basically 4 axes: enlightening the citizen, mobilizing people on the ground, and then making a change through impact investment, and then incubation of different green entrepreneurs. And the way to do this is through partnerships, different programs that we have with different partners, SwitchMed being one of them. And through that, we do the training and the mentorship and the formation of different green entrepreneurs. More than 40 programs, training programs and mentorship have been put in place, and so on and so forth. But getting right to the point, I think what needs to be said and what needs to be done, and that's the direction that Fondation took, is to make a noticeable change, and that needs putting in money on the table and empowering people to make that change. So this is why Viridi's platform is in place. And as of today, through the personal wealth of Mrs. Fadel, about $7-8 million have been invested into 14 startups. That does not go without challenge. I think the main message I'd like to share, and then I'll leave the word for Gabby, who's one of the investees into which we partnered up. So the main challenge that we face today is that constantly changing environment. I'm happy to hear about all these different initiatives and all these different programs and stakeholders around the Mediterranean Sea. But to us, the problem is that we constantly go backward rather than forward. So I'm sure that most of you must have known about the Beirut blast a year ago, the economic recession. So that is coming in the way. And instead of helping out, boost the economy, make a progress towards the environment, we find ourselves having to fight even more and put in more resources and means to get to the end result that we initially had. And that particular case is quite familiar. Yeah, I'm sure you're quite familiar with, and quite spread around the region, especially for emerging countries. The one thing that one should keep in mind is that the 100-step journey starts with 1 step. That's Lao Tzu. And I think that for Fondation Diane and in the different investments that we have, finding the right way of financing and creating partnership with all these different entrepreneurs is the main challenge that we face today. And the main reason is, from one end, you need to keep the entrepreneur quite incentivized, and you need to put in the right resources on that end. And that equation is not always simple. So valuation comes as a major hurdle in the way, putting in the right resources. And if you're going ahead and you see yourself actually going backward because the macro situation is not really helping, then you have to put in more money and you have to keep supporting your entrepreneur and startups. So that creates the main challenge. And this is where you have to get really creative, adapt, and then develop new means, and then adjust between yourselves, your initial goals, and the ones that you need to keep reinventing together with the different entrepreneurs. And that is a very live example that we had with EcoServe. A couple of years back, we made a joint venture. So the model was, rather than making an investment, we made a joint venture. Fondation Diane was already active in the electronic waste collection, and EcoServe was also doing the same. We weren't exactly in that same spot doing the same thing. We were more focusing on the collection of alkaline batteries. We're working with the EU on the collection and storage of lithium batteries from solar panels and other renewable energy systems. And then EcoServe was mainly into the collection of all other types of electronic waste, such as TVs, computers, laptops, etc. And the partnership came in as a kind of 50-50 partnership, whereby we join our hands, we join our efforts. Fondation Diane puts in the money and the financial resources needed for EcoServe to continue in its mission and program. And then EcoServe would put in their expertise, their network, etc. Combined together, the aim was to grow the network larger and to reach out for different off-takers of electronic goods, start the recycling, etc. Today, with the pandemic, with the economic recession, I think we're shifting our goals again. And this is where we kind of pride ourselves, always saying that Lebanese can easily adapt. This is something that today we're doing again with EcoServe. I think reinventing ourselves and reinventing the business plan is a definite need in keeping up with all these investment programs and financing tools that we see. And then on that end, I'll leave the floor to Gabi to tell you more about what he's doing and how we're reinventing this story.
Thank you very much, Selim. It's very, very insightful, and of course this adaptation, this resilience, you have also, it's part, let's say, of the network of this fund somehow. So this is an interesting element to take into account when it comes to more fragile, let's say, business ecosystem, specifically in the southern Mediterranean. Mr. Kassab, are you here? We would really like to listen to how, let's say, this funding has helped you to achieve your mission, and generally speaking, let's say, what are the objective of this joint venture with this fund and Fondation Diane. Sorry, but I have to ask you to stay within 5 minutes so we can conclude by 1:10. Thank you very much.
Okay, no problem. Hello, everybody. First of all, thank you very much for hosting me. Like Selim was saying, we have started with a major challenge. The fastest growing waste stream worldwide is electronic waste. It's a growing and toxic waste stream. So at the onset, we had lots of challenges, and we had to basically go into the awareness part because although it's a highly toxic waste stream, it was highly underestimated. And most of these electronic waste and toxic material were dumped and were directly impacting ground level water, as well as agricultural land and so on and so forth. So for us, the major challenge at the beginning was awareness. And in spite of everything that's happening in Lebanon, we went and we did north of 70 workshops and events in 2019 prior to COVID, to the COVID problem. It was very well basically captured. It captured all universities. We enlisted a lot of interest from universities, from hospitals, from institutions which were very much interested in basically working subject to the CSR, corporate social responsibility issues. And we were there to provide them with certifications of proper disposal of their toxic waste. The second challenge was the logistics, because with awareness, of course, we had to basically work in parallel to establish drop zones for households to be able to have a practical way to get rid of their electronic waste. Because subject to the UN studies in 2016, 60% of electronic waste was still stored at home. And this creates a big danger, a big hazard for public health. So in order to encourage that, we have basically increased our awareness campaigns, as well as now we have north of 120 drop zones from deep south to deep north in Lebanon. This would encourage, of course, people to get more awareness and better understand the dangers of hazardous waste. And at the same time, we have done in parallel an upcycling program with universities to encourage, first of all, the engineering departments in universities to think about upcycling. It's no longer a taboo issue in electronic waste. Try to reconfigure or reproduce whatever comes out of the waste. And we have done already 2 competitions from universities where we made 2 groups basically win the competition. And now they are working on the e-plastics, which is a big challenge worldwide, basically, because e-plastics contains bromide, which is a highly toxic material. Now, for us, our ambition is basically to increase contribution in the circular economy through finding creative ways in upcycling, upcycling and recycling, basically, to actually go with our motto that zero waste goes to landfills, because worldwide, landfills worldwide are composed 3% of them, of these landfills. And we're talking about official landfills here, we're not talking about dump sites. They are composed of electronic waste, but these 3% contribute to 70% of the toxins that go into this landfill. So you can imagine the impact on nature, the impact on the environment, especially in dire times in which Lebanon is going through nowadays. And also we are establishing a program for refunds and a point system to encourage people also to properly dispose of their electronic waste, because our major challenge now are the scrappers that go and collect haphazardly electronic waste and break it down to sell it as metal and iron, and all the toxic parts of it are dumped or either in forests or in unofficial dump sites, and this creates a big havoc. We are pushing forward, and thanks to Vridis and thanks to the Fondation Diane, we have been very instrumental in establishing a good system to keep growing our drop zone network and our logistic infrastructure.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kassab. Thank you also.
I'm trying to speed as much as I can. I don't know.
Just perfect. We are already running beyond schedule. So I think that I will conclude only saying thank you to all speakers and to all attendees. Indeed, this is our objectives for this panel was also to funnel, let's say, the narrative of how sustainable finance should get to the real recipients, to those green and circular business models who are really at the center of the change, and they have really the potential to transform this this actual consumption and production model and patterns. I would like just to inform you that this panel will be a story. We will try to get the most of it, and this is why we have also recorded the session. And for all the speakers, please allow myself again to thank you, and also to be again in touch for networking and for follow-up activities. Thank you very much, and have a good day.
Thank you, Alessandro. Thank you to all. Bye-bye.
Have a nice day. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.